All right, let's talk about the Mona Lisa. You know her, I know her. She's the world's most famous painting, the absolute star of the Louvre. Millions of people flock to see her every single year. But have you ever stopped to wonder why? What's really behind all that fame?
I mean, is she really all that? Or is her reputation more about, being an icon than being a piece of art? That's what we're going to dig into. Are we looking at a true masterpiece? Or just a painting that got caught up in centuries of hype?
And get this, somebody actually timed it. The average visitor spends just 15 seconds looking at her. 15 seconds! You probably spend more time deciding what to watch on TV. Talk about a disconnect, right? So that's the paradox, isn't it? How can a 15-second glance be enough for the world's most famous painting? We're going to investigate what's really going on behind that bulletproof glass. You know, the art historian Martin Kemp really hits the nail on the head. It always comes back to that smile. It's like a key, not just to the painting, but to the mind of Leonardo da Vinci himself, a guy who it turns out was every bit the scientist he was an artist. So, to really get it, we're going to peel back the layers. And I mean that literally. We're going to use modern science to look right through the surface and see what 500 years have been hiding from us. First, though, you gotta understand how these things were built back then. It wasn't just paint on a canvas. No, it's this whole complex structure. You start with a wood panel, then a white base coat called gesso to make the colors pop. Then come these super thin, see-through layers of oil paint, one on top of the other, all sealed up with a final coat of varnish. This layering, it's everything. Now, here's where it gets cool. Scientists can use ultraviolet and infrared light to basically see through time. They can look right past that old, cracked yellow-green varnish that coats the painting today. And when they do, hidden details just appear, like this incredibly delicate, translucent veil she's wearing that you can barely even see with your own eyes. And this is where you really see how Leonardo was playing a totally different game from everyone else. You take an X-ray of a painting by his contemporary, Raphael, and what do you see? Clear lines. He drew it first, then basically colored it in. But Leonardo's X-rays? Whoa. The Mona Lisa just vanishes into this phantom. There are no hard outlines, because he wasn't drawing and filling in. He was letting the image just emerge. Just like researcher Elizabeth Ravad says, his images are ghost-like. This painting stopped being just a portrait of some merchant's wife. For Leonardo, it became his lab, a project he worked on for 16 years, always tweaking, always changing, never quite calling it done. So how in the world did he pull off that phantom effect? Well, it wasn't just artistic magic. Leonardo was using the science of how we see, physics and anatomy, to create these illusions that nobody had ever even dreamed of before. And the secret sauce is a technique he pioneered called Sfumato. It literally means smoky in Italian. He would apply up to 30 layers of incredibly thin paint to make the transitions between light and dark impossibly soft. The result? No hard lines. Anywhere. And that plays a massive trick on your brain. Just try to find the edge of her mouth or the corners of her eyes. You can't. As Martin Kemp points out, that uncertainty makes her feel like she's right there in the room with you, but also not quite real, like a dream you can't quite hold on to. Now, to get that kind of realism, Leonardo went to some pretty extreme lengths. He became a master of anatomy, and I mean, he really got his hands dirty. He personally dissected around 30 human bodies to see how the machine actually worked. And remember, this is long before refrigeration, so yeah, it was messy work. And this is where it all clicks into place. He was reverse engineering the human face, figuring out exactly which muscles and nerves fire to make a specific expression. In fact, tucked away in one of his anatomy notebooks is the very first sketch of that famous smile. And here's the crazy part. Modern neuroscience shows he stumbled onto an optical illusion. The smile is clearer in your peripheral vision. So think about that. When you look at her eyes, she seems to smile, but the moment you look right at her mouth, it disappears. It's that constant shift that makes her feel alive. But here's the thing you really have to understand about Leonardo. He didn't think of himself as just a painter. He was an engineer, an inventor, a scientist. And that fusion, that refusal to stay in one box, was the real secret to his art. You see, his genius was kind of powered by the fact that he was an outsider,
Born illegitimate, he was self-taught, so he wasn't chained to the rigid rules of the time. That freedom meant he could chase his curiosity anywhere it took him, connecting dots that nobody else even saw. And you see it his whole life. As a young man, he helped figure out the engineering to lift a giant golden ball onto the top of Florence's cathedral. Years later, he designed a groundbreaking bridge for an Ottoman sultan. And get this, modern engineers ran the numbers on his 500-year-old design. It would have worked. For him, science wasn't a distraction from art, it was the engine that drove it. As his biographer Walter Isaacson puts it, that combo is Leonardo. He simply didn't see a dividing line. To him, figuring out how water flows in a river was the same kind of problem as figuring out how a single curl of hair falls. Okay, so let's put all the pieces together. The Mona Lisa isn't just a portrait. It's more like the grand finale of a lifetime of scientific obsession and artistic genius. You could even say it was Leonardo's ultimate invention. And for the first time, we can basically see it through his eyes. Using all this high-tech scanning, scientists have digitally removed 500 years of dirt and grime. And bam! That murky yellow world is gone. The sky is this brilliant, crisp blue. You can see a natural pink flush in her cheeks. It feels like she's sitting right there in the fresh air. This is the masterpiece he wanted us to see. When you really look at it, this one painting is where all of Leonardo's different worlds smash together. His obsession with Sfumato, with anatomy, optics, geology, even psychology. It's all right there on that single wood panel. It's his entire philosophy of life, painted. Isaacson just nails it. If Leonardo had only been a painter, he could never, ever have made the Mona Lisa. It took the scientist to understand how life worked, and the artist to breathe a soul into it. And that kind of leaves us with one last thought, doesn't it? Science can now explain how Leonardo crafted that impossible smile. We get the optics, the anatomy, the layers of paint. But can science ever really explain why? Why that smile still gets to us 5 centuries later? Maybe. Maybe that's the one mystery science can never solve.